All right, hey everyone. Alex Tanner here, episode 16, Talking Shop with Outlier Firefighters. I'm here with Sammy Vega. This is going to be a really cool episode tonight. Glad to have everyone here with you, and glad to have you here too, Sammy. It's going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate it. I appreciate being able to be a part of this, and I'm looking forward to sharing, some of the things that uh, I guess got me to be a part of your show. So, just ready to rock.
Yeah, and short background on that, like your name has been coming my direction, and people are saying you got to talk to Sammy. He's got great things to say. When my lieutenant took class, we could talk about LDDM later, but
Sure.
a lot of the questions I'm going to ask you come from some of those conversations from really the reputation that you are spreading out and the positive message that you're spreading out. So everyone, it's going to be a good one, and I'm excited to bring you here. So Sammy's a line engineer with Calumet City. He's also the training officer, and he works for part time also with IFSI, and we'll talk about everything that you're doing up there for now. But that's just a little intro of where he's at. So we'll start right here. What was your first exposure to the fire service?
Um, so, so I grew up in Calumet City for the most part, kind of transient for a little bit of my life, moving around with my family when they split up. And, you know, the, I was just talking about this the other day with one of the guys who come by to visit. Cal City has like this long history of taverns. Back in the day, it was like the original Sin Strip, and it's intersection of State Street and State Line. And I grew up 2 blocks off that. Well, grew up there in the '90s, and the '20s and '30s is it was getting built up. It was a major area for vice. Like the place pretty much ran 23 hours a day, closed for an hour, and as the steel mill shifts kept moving around, uh, people came in to drink and they had fun. Well, by the time I was in town, all those places had closed down. The steel mills had gone from the area, and there's just the familiar smell of smoke in the air because that whole area was burning down. It parts of it were just dilapidated or whatever, but the section of town that I was at tended to have more fires, especially at time. And I mostly walked, skateboarded or whatever, with my cronies and going to different places. And I can just remember seeing an engine scream out, 3 blocks away from my house, and I go check it out, go take a look at what the guys are doing, and I've talked about this one before, but I had this run-in with this fireman that I ended up becoming friends with years down the line. I was walking by this firehouse. It's our Station 11 now. It's a single bay firehouse, like your classic Midwest firehouse, rectangle, longer than wide kind of building, single house with an addition for an ambulance to it. And all these firemen are outside, like '80s, '90s firemen. They're all smoking cigarettes, not smoking cigars for bay time and to look cool. They're just smoking ciggies. And this guy is like, "Hey, good, come on over." Screwed over there. Like, I'm excited to talk to the guy, and he's like, "Hey, you're that kid that likes to follow us, huh?" Something like that. I used to be on my bike or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And I'm excited. This is gonna be freaking great. This probably gonna get invited in. Probably gonna give me a helmet. No, he's like, why don't you stop fucking doing it? And, boots me out. I'm like, "Oh, all right." But from that though, like the real exposure happened. I was up late one night, or actually up early one morning, when I saw paramedics across the street from me, and I saw that big Calumet City box. They had the old internationals back in the day, and I seen these two medics run out. And they're doing CPR on a baby, and for that to be the first thing that you see, first thing in the morning, it's like, holy crap, like that made it real for me. Because other than that, like you have firemen that come in, they do pub ad or whatever, or you're a kid and you like to play with fire engines. But that's when, and even that funny, thing with Mike back in the day, um, to really see how serious the world was, and that's somebody's job. There's a baby. Now I know it was cardiac arrest or full arrest, and there were two people, and they were going to go and they were going to try to get something done about it. It just, like, it scared the shit out of me, truthfully. Like even if it, I don't know if pediatric coke doesn't scare you, I don't know what will, um, but that's it. Like there's nothing more raw than that. Yeah, I'd see fires, I'd see things, but there's nothing more real than seeing what paramedics do, what paramedic firefighters do. So that's it, like in a nutshell.
Yeah, wow, that's quite the story. And how old were you when you experienced that?
I was fairly young. So I was a bit of a deviant, and I had been out all night drinking, and you know this is like, and that's like, and like the realness of it was this family that lived across the street from me. They left their kid out overnight, you know, and so I think this might have been around when I was 18, because I ended up leaving my house shortly after that. But like, here I am getting ready to, get out of my house. It's, pretty common for us to not really stick around the house very long. Like I noticed in the fire service, and I love it. All the young guys that I know, they're like 28 and they're having dinner with their parents, which is awesome. Good. Do it as long as you can. But, you know, seeing that, as a very young man, I guess 18 is when you're a man or classified for it, it was one of those like defining things. Cause even then I didn't try to be a fireman. I was going an entirely different direction. In fact, it scared me more than anything. Like, I do not want to do that. Like that's there's some hard bark on people that can do that.
Yeah, I that's and then just transitioned into getting bit by it then, right? And wanted to join up and it's pretty cool
Well,
that
so
you grew up in the town that you ended up working in too. That's not a common thing really anymore,
yeah,
except for like in the volunteer world and that kind of stuff. But
yeah, that's so, and it's like this, like I'm sure we'll kind of go everywhere with this dude, but like there are times that I'm extremely happy that I stayed in Calumet City. And then there are times that I realized I didn't get out of a, 25 square mile box in the Midwest. Like I only know the region, and if you consider that, a part of that box is Lake Michigan, and I don't go to Lake Michigan. I just go in the surrounding area. I never got out of the South Burbs, and like one of the things, I know like later in the questions that we'll go to, but it's like this ebb and flow because there's an extreme amount of pride, right? I've turned hydrants. We test our own hydrants in town. I've turned the hydrant in front of my old house, and I've seen the kids that are there, and there's an extreme amount of pride about that. There's also this part of it that you just see the worst of things happen to people. As much as you wish for fire or you wish to do our job, and like it's always somebody's stuff. It's always somebody's home. It's always their worst day, and so it can be like a roller coaster with me. Yeah, absolutely. To answer that, yeah, I'm stoked that I get to serve there. Also, like New York, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco. I think to hit on that topic, for anybody that would be listening or even thinking about that, if your heart's where your hometown is, that's good. It's fine. Live with your decision. And for people wanting to get in the fire service, like this is the time in your life to be testing on the job. Like, just like for you, how long ago did you get on the job?
so total current department 5 years, and then
Okay.
at 2010 I got on as a volunteer part time, and then worked up through
So
that.
in 2010, the stories that you would hear about trying to get on the job,
I lived
like
it. I lived
how
it.
were lists were
Yeah,
like 100
they were
people, 200
huge.
people.
Uh huh.
Yeah, right. And so like when I went to get on Cal City, I went to Park Ridge, shit, like this score, like 10 departments I was trying to get on, departments I wouldn't even pass the written test,
Yeah.
departments that I failed their freaking physical exam, and finally getting on a couple of lists, it was like, oh shit, this one fell through. And like Cal City was like, oh man, like I really wanted to work there. And it didn't even dawn on me then, other than the FDNY, which was like my dream job, um, that I'd be able to go anywhere else. And like now, it just amazes me because put full-time jobs like Portland or other big cities, they're taking laterals. with like, for guys with 2 years on the job. A buddy of mine, James, left. He got, I think in the same week, he had an offer for Chicago and then Denver. And he was on one of the South Sub departments, and he had his pick. He had a pick between Chicago and Denver. I mean, like what a magical time to be searching for a job,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And so it's just one of those things. I think that's where my ebb and flow goes, because it's like, oh man, that would have been cool,
yeah,
and there's that part of it that, that groove that I think I stay mostly on is that I am in Cal City and I'm going to own the hell out of it. I'm going to own the job. I'm going to try to do the most that I can while I'm there, because it doesn't matter in the end where you are. It's where you settle your feet. You better make a freaking difference.
yeah, yeah. And that's one thing. A lot of when I have firefighters on, right? When I have blue shirts on, we all say the same. Or we're not. I shouldn't say it like it's a bad thing. We all say the same thing. But like, yeah, that's the mentality to have. That you don't have to be from Jobtown to be good at your job, care about it, train
Right.
hard, constantly improve, and
Right.
then get outside of your bubble. Nobody needs to invite you to do that, right? You can do
Yeah.
it wherever you work, and I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's definitely the mentality to have with things.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like I don't also want to be I want to be exactly where you described it, right? But I also don't want to limit myself to think that this is the only world, right? Because, and I don't want to throw, and I'll phrase it like that. I'm not throwing Calumet City guys under the bus, but I'm not going to throw out other departments that I know. But I can tell you, I know that there are departments that say, because we're XYZ fire department, we do it the best, and this is the only way to do it. We use this kind of nozzle. We've used it for 100 years, and it's, my grandpa so and so was the chief, and he wanted this, blah blah blah, and we get locked in that bubble, and they get locked in that department pride, and like that's a hard thing to have,
Yeah,
because isn't that a balance, dude?
yeah,
Like, because I think, like, part of the show, part of this kind of group of people getting together is like recognizing that you are trying to break a norm in the place that you've settled your feet into. Like you're locked in like concrete. You're going down the river, like
yeah,
you're going to sink with it. That's it. That's where
yeah,
you're going to be. And it's like there are things that are worth changing, and I think that's a problem with almost every department. That the only constant in life is change, and it's so hard for some people to go and change, especially, okay, you come around and you start talking about ladders and rescues or whatever, whatever you started to train on, whatever you're excited about. And for the other guys that have settled their feet in the department that you're trying to make, that's not the department they want, right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's interesting.
Yeah, and learning that delivery and communication, that's I think that's every passionate person's constant struggle, right? And learning how to change the way I wrote lesson plans for at work, and I would use the word student when I would write them. And I didn't think anything of it. We're students, we're learning. Like it wasn't meant to be an insult or anything like that. And one of the guys on the training committee comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you shouldn't put student in there. Everybody thinks that, you're sending them back to the fire academy." I was like, "Well, that wasn't my intention." Like, okay, fine.
Right.
Firefighter. Like, I'll fix the way that I phrase things. It wasn't an ill will.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that's the constant, like, for change for people that are passionate. Like, you're constantly reinventing the way that you phrase things and the way you
Yeah.
deliver stuff. That's the struggle, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
change is inevitable. It's always going to happen.
Right.
And Chris Leanhart's in our chat here. He says, "Too many departments operate in a vacuum." It's echoing exactly what you're saying,
Right.
and we have to do a better job somehow in our area. And I don't know, you're on the south side of Chicago. I'm in the north suburbs. Like we're way separated, but like having that connection in the fire service, hopefully, then everyone starts to do things like this, and you could start to spread that message. But it takes a lot of work, and you just have to be in for it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the hard thing to do,
Yeah.
and that's the worthwhile thing to do. And what else can you do? You can lay out for the rest of your career and hide at training. You can hide at calls, but you know, shit, if you want to go hide somewhere, you can pick any job in the world right now. Why pick this job? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely. So getting up to your current position, right? Training officer, line engineer. How did you progress to those positions once you got hired at Calumet City? What was your journey to get to there?
Yeah. Got on in '05 and um, I I was super stoked. I was super in the job. I got to go to FSI for Fire Academy. So I was a volunteer for a couple years before I was on Cal City. And it's funny because when I got hired by this volunteer company, I challenged my state tests. And so I never had any formal fire training, like not 1 ounce of it. Like my first fire was the day that I learned how to use an air pack. And yeah, dude. And um but I didn't know shit. I knew nothing, and like less than nothing, because how can you retain knowledge as a novice and read a technical manual and teach yourself? I mean, it's a trade, right? And so by the time I got on Cal City, if you go to FSI's academy, um, it prides itself on being, the best in the state, if not the Midwest. And it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. You're going to work your ass off. And, coming back from that, the FSI does this great job of like motivating you. Like you're feeling like really stoked. You got a lot of pride and you go back. And when I went back to the job, there are, you know, uh, the good and the bad. And I learned so much from the bad right off the bat, because when you're fresh out of school and you go to the street and you see somebody doing something and you learn the way, the street way, that's actually vetted by science. It's been done for 170 years of the fire service, but it necessarily isn't in a JPR. And you learn that, and you're like, your mind gets blown. But then you see somebody fumble through using a Halligan bar, and they don't know, they're asking a hole around. So you see so many things. You see, this variation. And so I I was a pretender um, for the first couple of years. I worked out a ton. I found that it was easier to just exercise, wear my uniform pretty tight, and think I knew what I knew. Like Lionheart was just saying, I was in my vacuum and I totally ate up the vacuum.
Yeah.
I and there were a couple outliers. Um, there was at the time, I think it would have been Chief Bacher. He was the training guy. Then it went to Pammy, and Captain Eames. She was a mentor of mine, and she called out a lot of bullshit for what it was when it came down the line. She wanted to do a lot of training. She had her own style, and she she had her liberty. So you're talking about like how you talk to people and how you engage in things. Like like Pam was as tough as nails, and she was, if she was going to do something, she was going to do it. And she like took me under her wing. I think she liked my attitude. I think she liked what she saw, but she also saw that, like I wanted to learn. And this progression ends up happening because I get influenced by a couple different people. A buddy of mine, Charlie, on the job, retired as a senior pipeman. And I hear this a lot, where guys like, oh, you need to progressively move up the chain. And I say, you dig your heels in where you're happy, because there are too many people that take promotions that shouldn't be promoted. They're chasing paper, they're chasing dough. And my progression as it goes was I was lucky. I had this mentor in Charlie who was this old school streetwise fireman. I can tell you, like, thinking about fires where Charlie was just flowing and moving. But if you would have told him the science, and read something today from the UL, um, you'd be like, oh, that's bullshit, you know. But the job is the job, right? And then I had really good mentors like Pammy. Pammy was going out, every other weekend to a conference, something around the state, learning in the books, as YouTube started coming up. Hey, check this video out, check this video out, check this video out. And became friends with them, and so I had these really two good mentors, and I ended up getting hurt. like 2013. I had a catastrophic back injury, and I basically wasn't going to come back to the job. I had this doctor. He says, you got a choice. I will literally write you off right now, or you can try physical therapy and see if you'll get back. And throughout the physical therapy, I was like, man, I am not going to do this job, and it like crushed me, because I had invested so much in filling a uniform. It was an empty uniform, and then I realized, that the parts of me, like when you go back to when I came out of the academy, like FSI, like there's this genuine love there. There's the love of the rookie firefighter looking into the firehouse, wanting to get into that seat, wanted to get into that jump seat, wanted to get in the rig. And so I really went far into reading because that's about as much as I could do. I went into a lot of Sopranos while I was laid up, but I did a lot of reading, and I had Charlie and I had Panny, and Charlie never stopped being that stereotypical brother in the firehouse to me. He never stopped, and so I always had that, right? And I always had this tough as nails dude who would he treated me like a little brother. And then I had Pammy. I want to call Pam my mom, but she was like this protector, who would still share with me information and stuff that was going on. And so as I came out, my interest had peaked on doing the job right. Culturally, we had a system where we wouldn't call for lift assist or anything like that. It's how I got hurt, carrying a very heavy guy out of a basement and just, me and my partner losing control, and I blow out the disc in my back. And, coming back to this, where like even today, man, like in my chair, I'm stocked up full of pillows trying to keep my posture. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to move something like a 2.5 or throw a 24-foot ladder by myself when I could have done it, 5 years before out of muscle. I couldn't do it out of skill now, right? And the first class I took in 2014, 2015, like I think I have cognitive decline, but the first class I took was the nozzle forward, and thank God for it, because and I hear often from people who don't understand that message that Fields gives, right? It's not like the guys like us or guys that take the class, we think that a person is a prophet. That's bullshit. People have this negative look on change. And what's funny is that Fields and anybody else who's in that realm, that outlier realm, I guess, they're only giving facts. They're not in a vacuum, right? They're willing to say, oh, I didn't know that. Teach me more. But what I had dealt with prior was, this is the way, this is the only way. And learning from him and starting to engage him and starting to take more classes. And like you were talking about language, like learning that language, learning a trade language and going forward, I came back to thinking about how, 1 second, I'm getting a call.
No,
Sorry.
no worries.
So I had gotten to this point where you start learning cool stuff, a clamp slide, flowing and moving, single firefighter 28 throw. And I wanted to share it. And, that's where it happens, because it's like this immediate clash. And so from there, it was like I didn't get that support back at home. Now I had Pammy and I had Charlie, but they leave about 2017, I think, for the both of them. So what happens here for me is this part where, I'm kind of in it on my own. I don't really have anybody at the department that really likes to train the way I like to train now. I have another mentor. He would be that current times training officer. He's a great guy. He's awesome. Good carpenter, etc. But again, like, hey, let me tell you about this. Well, that's bullshit. And a lot of it had to have been my delivery. I have to own that, because you come back super excited from the class and you want to change the world. But that trajectory changed with FSI because I wanted to go somewhere to get more reps, because at the time the culture was not to flake out line, not to go throw ladders against the firehouse. It was to kind of go through training as most fire departments do. And, I started seeking out more classes, and I wanted to seek out a place where I could go just refine those skills. And, you know, it's funny when it comes to the instructor side, but like at no point did I ever have a goal in like being an instructor or even having some sort like, you're mentioning, a message to share. But it was this thing of I just didn't want to suck. And I knew that my life, my physical well-being was going to depend on it. So trained a lot there, started teaching, and I got a couple other pals in the area that teach, different conferences and, whatever. And it just got me on the right track. And I think as it started to mature um, towards like 2019, 2020, um, I had an opportunity, that the training officer that had been there, he was on his way out. And I had settled myself in to be pretty much the most qualified, amount of classes or amount of tacit knowledge about specific kind of work. And, I got placed in that position, and it was cool because at the time, it wasn't an officer, it was a fireman getting put in the training officer role. And so they had to change the title for a little bit until I made rank to engineer, but I was the training director. But that was the course. It was out of a lot of failure and being lost, and trying to find this way and trying to find these little lighthouses, during my little storm,
Yeah.
And so that course landed, and I'm happy. We were talking about like where we're at and where you end up in your career, like, digging your heels in, like it's good. Like the work is good, So that's the course, in a
Awesome.
nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, jumping on an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
When you get it and it's there, those don't come every day. They definitely
Well,
don't.
dude, and that's the other thing about opportunities. Like if you're not like opportunity doesn't knock, you got to go kick the fucking door down.
Yeah,
You have
absolutely.
to. You have to get yourself ready to be in the hallway, though, because you're not going to be there. But you have to put yourself in the spot, you know. And if you don't do the work and you expect to get a role like that, it's just that's arrogance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, oh yeah. So one of the things that my friend, when he had taken LDDM, and we can talk a little bit about what that is, maybe in a second or two here. But one of the things that he pulled away from you, among a couple that we're gonna kind of talk about here, was like a linear life. The thought process was be what you want to be at the end now. And
Yeah.
he said that he
Oh yeah.
heard that kind of uh, that from you, and I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah. So I try to live it by this now because like I think I didn't. Well, it's funny about originality. Like there are no original thoughts, but you do have some original processes. And one of the things that came to me, and we say it a lot, I want to be able to run a call and put my head down at the end of the night and say, I did the most I can for this patient. I did the most I can for this call. I did the most I can on the job. Blah, 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 blah. But then we get into the firehouse and we start a fight, or we're at the coffee table and we talk shit, or somebody does something and it just pisses you off, right? And we all are on this trajectory to be the senior person. Like we're talking about you and your father and like that connection you end up having. But here's this trajectory of respect because you have gray hair. That's it. You meet somebody with gray hair. You're like, Salt, cool. They've been on the job. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to ask them a question. I want some advice. And you get that just by looking the way, right? And I thought about, and the way I phrased it during LDM was, what would yourself at the rank that you want to be at tell you right now what you should do? And so it could have been in reference to anything. When I use that, it'd be, I'm pissed off because the guys at work don't want to check out the rigs in the morning, and whenever I come in, the rigs are a mess and the bottles blah 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 blah. I'm gonna go make this decision and I'm gonna go this way, or I'm gonna go start a fight and go this way. So you know you always have a moral compass. You really do. you are who you are. And so I would say, for myself, like, what my goal was to be a captain, right? Um, I wanted to run a shift, which is funny because it's the way the tea leaves are going to read. I'm not going to have that role, which is fine. Um, and that's a big part of this is, you know, when I would say, what would Captain Sam Vega, blah, 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 say to myself right now? He would say, hey man, you be a gentleman. Don't yell. Don't be a jerk. Don't do this. Don't you you see yourself. Everyone sees themselves as this. You want to project this success. I don't think anybody really wants to say, well, by the end of my career, I want to be the guy who doesn't want to be at work. I want to be the guy who sits in a corner. I want to be the guy that everyone moves away from. I want to be the guy that sits in my office all day. Nobody, I don't think, says that. They want to be the guy that cares. They want to be the guy that can, ask a good question. Well, let me give you what I know. And so I think that worked because even now, like I can explain that. The way the tea leaves go with just, the escalator in a small department, once a rank gets held up, it's going to be held up. And so younger guys, junior guys are at a higher rank and they'll hold the position that, like I coveted. And like that is the best thing that could happen because now my ego, man, it's never going to be satisfied. And so, what would even myself at that position, at that job, tell myself now? It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't. That thing is just finite. And one of the things it goes in line with when I share that with LEM is, you can search for whatever goal you have in the firehouse, but it just has to have meaning for you, right? Because when you take your helmet out on your last day, an hour later, somebody's putting their helmet in, they're putting their gear in your locker, they're putting their uniform in your uniform locker. You're gone, dude. Your name is off the seniority list. You're not picking anything. The seat you sat in for lunch is no longer your seat. And so, you know, when I use that for myself, it'll end up centering how I want to look at it. You know what I mean? Like I think it works. And I hope that's been the effect of that because who better to tell you you're full of shit than yourself?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Self accountability. That's more powerful than most other things. It's the same thought process of admitting your own mistakes or something like that. For you to go, man, I really messed that up, versus someone coming up to you going, you really messed that up. You receive that yourself differently, right? If you can get ahead of the curve, and everyone here in the chat is agreeing with everything that you're saying. Words of wisdom, right? That's well stated, and yeah, I couldn't say it any better, obviously. So,
Well, no,
yeah,
I appreciate that, well, because we all have the same narrative. I don't think anybody, they're like, there's a few outliers on the other side that got on the job because they're like, I don't know. But I don't think anybody, even the turds that you knew know on the job, I don't think they wanted to be turds. They just had the space to become a turd. Actually, I got a good one for you because I told this to our recruit class because it's all about turds. Um, so once you have the mantle of turd in your career, it never leaves. So here's the example. You get on the job and you suck and you're not into the job and you know everyone's like, man, Sammy's not cutting it. He's not meant for this job. And then year two, I take a turn and I'm into it and I'm excelling. I'm good medic. I'm good around the firehouse. I clean, bop, 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 bop. And on year 26 for me, they're going to say, man, Sam started out as a turd, but he had a good career. All right. Then there's the other one where Sam starts off for 25 years. He's awesome, blah, 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 blah. And then for the last year, I come in and I'm a turd. I make everybody pissed off. I go and I ruin everybody's day. I pick fights, talk shit. I'm a shitty fireman. Sam had a good career, but he ended like a turd. Or, you know what? Sam was a turd from day one, and he was a turd on the last day. But no matter what, once you get that label, you're always a turd. And so I can't imagine anybody getting on the job like that's what I want. I want to be in the toilet bowl for the rest of my career or at a point in my career, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and somehow it happens, and I think that like I was telling you before we went live, like that was really a lot of why I started this whole thing was to try to make sure that I never became a turd. And it's not like I was worried that it was going to happen, but like if there were little things that I could correct now earlier in my career to get to the end where that doesn't happen. And I'm definitely not going to like crap all over my own organization, but there are definitely turds, right? Because everyone's got them.
oh yeah,
And there are turds who probably did do some things before I got there and were positive, but like you said, like at the end, like they just take their feet off the gas, hands off the wheel, and that's it. And it's like, well, that's all anyone's going to know of you is your last 5 years. All you cared about was what station you were at, and that you could not work Wednesdays, so you don't have to be around the admin, like those kinds of things. And that was unfair because actually the guy that did that's not a turd, but it was a poor example, which I know he doesn't listen to this, but either way,
no, I get it.
yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
get it.
so yeah, whatever can be done early or to recognize it and change. So that was one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is recognizing that and then, changing your behavior. So I think a lot of people get into that point, right? Where maybe they're not a turd, but they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're in a hole or something like that. And for
Yeah,
example, there's a guy who just came to my shift not too long ago and he got a bad beat early on. He's doing much better now, and he got put with the right people, and it worked out. But it took a lot for him to crawl out of that hole to the point where we're like, all right, he's doing good, and people are not thinking he's a liability or crap like that. And he's exceptional on our shift now. He does a great job, and he contributes. What can someone in that position do to get out of the hole?
dude, that's me. So, and like especially talking about the turds, like anybody who listens to this from my organization or anywhere else, they know the truth about me, and I'll give it to any of you that are listening. So, from however I grew up as a person, whatever shaped and molded me, I am what I was, and I'm growing into the person I will be, right? And the person I've been is an angry asshole. Angry. Before I was angry about what I think is righteous, like, hey man, we need to make some positive changes. You guys suck. Well, that was the worst way to say it. To when before I was angry for just a bunch of other reasons, right? And I look at that now because I'm dealing with those repercussions the further I go in my career because I've I've burnt bridges with people to the degree that all they'll ever hear or see is the dude who was a jerk when I was, in major depression. I'm like LDN was one of those places where I shared that quite a bit because we talked a lot about resiliency and how much the mental aspect of what you bring to the job, it influences everything around you. I could think I'm a saint, but if I'm really just coming in and causing hell, I'm not, and there are people that aren't going to perform the way I think people should perform. And that doesn't mean I should treat them like a jerk. I should not yell at them. Right. And so that's going to be something, until people retire at my job, they're still going to get that message from me because it's going to be in a look. If my look of like, hey man, you should learn how to mask up with your gloves on. Like that's a big thing. They're just going to see me when I was being, a turd. And so my biggest part of that is owning it. There doesn't have to be this thing where you hold your hat in your hand and you do the 12-step thing, which is fine. 12 steppers, part of it's you make amends, but you have to make amends. You have to own what you did. And so one of the things I've done and I will do is tell people, for a number of years I showed up to the firehouse and I needed help. I needed to see a therapist. I didn't need to be in the gym as much, but I needed to be talking to somebody about what was going on in my head. And be honest and say I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry I did that. And that's important. Like that, I when I speak, I'll say and a lot rather than but, because but's going to negate everything. The and of it is, and if I am talking to you about masking up with your gloves on, I'm not talking about you personally. I'm not saying, if I was going to say something to you personally, I'm a jerk, and it's going to, and I'm learning respect. I've learned respect. I had to eat humble pie. Field says that one, you've eaten enough humble pie, I should be diabetic, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's that part where, going back and trying to work with people, um, you have to own what your true faults were, because if you're not looking at yourself realistically, you're fooling. It's like you're just looking at this mirror and only seeing your smile. You're not seeing the face behind it, and moving forward with that, it's 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 incredibly hard to do. And so anybody going through that, where you have this rough go at the beginning or the middle or the end, if we're not self-reflecting and taking that deep breath and thinking, like, what am I bringing to the table today? Am I going to show up to the job today, and are people going to be happy that I'm there, or are they going to be pissed that I'm there? All right, so people are going to be pissed that I'm there. All right, are they going to be pissed that I'm there because I'm going to say, all right, hey, I know it's not, I know it's a Sunday, and we're gonna pull a couple lines, we're gonna flow some water, have some fun. Well, to somebody that's not fun. To somebody, it's their day of rest at my job. And so I don't mind that. If you're pissed off and you think I'm a turd because I'm doing that, well, that's fine, because this is where I'm drawing my line. This is who I'm going to end up choosing. This is who I choose to be on the job. And that person that does want to lay up, that person that has their thing, I don't own any right over them to treat them with ill. I just don't have to treat them, again, hat in hand. The conversation can happen, and so it's like this line in the sand. It's just this insane line, like hard driven line of honesty, and that is so hard to do.
Yeah.
Honest, like, I'm going to be honest with you. You suck as a fireman. You can say that. You're not a good firefighter, and that hurts, right? But should it? Because I can guarantee you, people like you, people that are, on the chat, they're more critical of themselves. They beat themselves down more than the critics or the haters or whatever, you know. And so for anybody, doing that is to look at, all right, this is what I did wrong. This is what I'm going to do better, and this is what I can do now, right? And that self-reflection happens constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at first it seems exhausting, but it is part of life. It's this constant of change. Change is the only constant, right? Um, and so it's like when you move forward down that line, I've just seen growth, um, and the ability to look at, and see it from I think it's called dialectic thinking. It's the middle of the road thinking. I'm going to do this thing, and this person's not going to like it, and this person's going to like it. It neither makes it bad nor good, but this is the decision and the road I'm going to go to. And knowing now that if this person's not going to like it because I'm being rude, well, I'd rather be a gentleman, right? So that's kind of the philosophy of it.
I yeah, I'm living some of that right now, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, with passion and being into the job, it's difficult to edit yourself, correct yourself, stop yourself when as wonderful as that worldview of the fire service is, as great as it brings you to more, when you come back home and you don't feel that,
Yeah.
it's frustrating, and yeah, it's sometimes your emotions get the better of you, or your stresses get the better of you, and I've learned, and I've had my moments where I've definitely spoken to people poorly, or I have, handled the situation the wrong way, and now I'm starting to find other ways. I'm learning, I'm reading about how to communicate better. I do the same thing at home. I do the same thing with my friends, trying to find a better way to, I can't think of an eloquent way to say it other than not be a dick. Like there's times where I
Be
would
a
just
gentleman, dude.
right and be a gentleman's got to be the way to say it for sure, right? And choose that.
I get that from my pal Ron, um, and he would say this during classes. You, you you get a good job, and a guy walks up and they're just banging the drum and hooting and hollering. That is not a gentleman, right? You go to a fire, and a female firefighter walks up like a lady, calm, cool, drops her line, forwards to the door, send the water. I want to back her up, right? Or firefighter at the pump panel, they're looking, couple lines going. And if you think about that, you add what you want to see on the fire ground to life, man, that's the golden part because like we all kind of live like this like lie, the person you're at the firehouse, the person you are to your kids, the person who you are, you know, I'm getting to this point where that's just, and I'm not good at it. Say that, it's work, it's constant work, but that's who I want to work to be, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I think all of us have, well, not a duality, but we all have multiple layers to us, multiple ways we act. I catch myself because when you're at the firehouse, you talk a little different,
oh yeah,
sometimes more colorful language. And I'll come home and I'll not realize that I'm talking like that. And I remember when I first started paid on call, I was still living with my parents, and I remember I'd come home and I'd talk like that, and my dad would be like, "Hey, you're not at the firehouse, kid."
yeah,
And
right,
I still have like that internal monologue where I'll do that at home with my wife, and she's fine. She can handle like
yeah,
cussing and stuff, but I still try to, be a little bit better about it. And I'll
yeah,
be telling a story about what we did at work, and I'll be like, "I'm not at the firehouse, Alex." And I'll say it to
yeah,
myself now as if my dad like parachuted out of the sky, like, "Stop it." But
yeah. Well,
um,
so
yeah,
you saying that it makes me think of like so another mentor I had is a captain, and he was an engineer. This dude was just I think he's got to be the top five people I've ever worked with in my life. Um, uh, he was who he was at home, in front of his kids, to his wife, at the firehouse. He's just completely leveled out, and I've, you pick and pull things that you enjoy and that you get influenced by. And if there's one thing I like about that, and so like, give you this example, I'm not religious at all, right? And I love that if you believe in something or if you don't, whatever. But this dude was hardcore, like, come on, guys, we're gonna pray, and he was like that at home. And when he did his things that he fell short of, he was like that at home and he owned it and he was always who he was. It was never anything different. And it was like he never had to clean that up that I've ever seen, and that's magic, man, because I don't want to go to work and be on the stage. I don't have to be anybody. I just, and then I think that's the thing that we're starting to collectively do is that we're making it about the job, not about the image,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
you better know how to do the job. We're going to judge you on your job because that's what matters. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care that you're vegan. I don't care that, whatever, you worship and bark at the moon. That's cool. But if you can't throw a ladder when we got to do it, or you can't, pull a search and be cool,
yeah,
calm, be a gentleman, um, it's just we're gonna judge you, and I think that's good,
yeah,
right? Because it's heading, it's this is that's what we can get better. That's people say about leaving the fire service better. I don't know if it's about leaving it. I think it's giving it the ability to continue growing, right?
yeah,
And like leaving that next brick because that next person they go in this direction and it's going to keep building. We've gone the other way for so long, it's a cyclical revolution, and I'm glad that I can be a part of it now because I think this is so 2023. This is 22 years total. It's interesting to see how it cycled just in my short time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think we're at a point of like massive growth and renaissance within the
Yeah.
fire service community as a country and probably even as a world. I mean,
Oh yeah.
and the amount of information, the amount of connections you can make, and then the self awareness level that's coming in, right? I feel like firefighters that really get it, right, and are into the job in the right ways, we're developing this not just mental health awareness, but like true self awareness of how good am I at my job, how good's my fitness, how am I
Right.
communicating with my brothers and sisters, how am I improving the status of this, how am I treating the community,
Right.
like those are all things where I think people are I don't know where it's coming from, but I see it and I see people have that self reflection more and more, or maybe I just was unaware of it where people were doing things. I don't know, but it
Yeah.
seems like everyone puts it out there and says I screwed up, or hey, come listen, let's talk about this. It's much more open in terms of the dialogue and then self reflection, which is awesome. It's really
So
exciting.
I got a theory on that because and I challenge people when I take classes because I'll hear this constantly. I'll get some older salt in a class and they're like, oh, this younger generation, these guys dot 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 dot. They're soft. They never had a trade. They never had this. They never had that. All right, cool. But this younger generation fought 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq. This generation lived through, a recession, a housing, collapse. In their generation, the firefighters that came up in this time that have been annoying the shit out of the group before me, they've lived an extraordinary amount more than a lot of other generations. And I look at what the wars, global wars, the state of the world has done to culture. So look at this. Beards would not be cool right now if we did not fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. That is a direct co-opt of special operations guys being able to commingle and communicate and work with the locals, right? And as a means of masculinity, the beard is a big part of Middle Eastern culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what got co-opted back? The typical Chad is going to be a guy with a big old beard, and going to be jacked, going to look like an operator, right? Salty firing with the mustache and all the tattoos. Hey, don't worry about it. No, hey, we all got it.
I know it's
We
gonna
all
come
grown,
rolling
dude.
through the chat here, so
No, it's
it's
all
fine.
good, dude. But check it out.
Yeah.
Like you have 20 years of perpetual war, and there's a whole culture out of that. And any of my friends that I talk to that went overseas, they are they're very accountable for what they did. Big part of the army is after action, right? They go out of the wire, they after action, contact or not, what the hell they did or whatever. And here's 18 and 19-year-old kids doing this in 2006 at the height of the insurrection in Iraq. That kind of communication getting brought back to the fire service, that's something. Because even if you didn't deploy, even if you weren't in the military, you're influenced by that culture. We're influenced by Go Ruck. You're influenced on this fitness move. You're influenced on WODs. Like the CrossFit explosion happened because of these guys. The ability to work out in a fob in Nowheresville, Afghanistan, is using the weights that you have and body weight and vests and rucksacks. And it's cool because it brought us back, I think, to what this was from World War II or Vietnam, is that the firefighters that came back from war, they defined the fire service. Like FDNY, all those patches, the amount of pride that you see is no different than, the Big Red One or 82nd Airborne. Like, you live by your unit patch. And you look at how that influences us because firefighting and like, I know there's parts of this that I think are corny, but because I don't look at it this as combat. I don't look at firefighting as just this war, but I do look at it as a warrior culture. Like, you protect people, you're willing to put your life on the line to die for somebody else. Like, people just don't do that shit.
Yeah.
right? And this part of that, this means of sacrifice, this means of, you know, busting up your body. Nobody leaves the fire service unscathed. If you've worked your back, your shoulder, your knees, your neck, your mental stability, you know, the loss of sleep, your cardiac problems, it is what it is. You get compensation for it, but the point is that you are a part of something that's been from the dawn of time where, you know, it's as long as people could sit around a bonfire, there have been people that were the outliers protecting that group, and there was the group, you know, live their daily lives. And here's that magical part, we're unique to ourselves. We are not the Navy SEALs. And you look at companies like Squad 2 or Squad 5, Rescue 1, you know, any of the rescues in New York, or any of the rescues anywhere. That kind of pride of being elite, that's in our fire service. You look at the pride you have in the northern suburbs to the south suburbs. You have companies with extreme amount of pride, and you know that, like, hey, this company's coming. That's who we want to go to the roof. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so I see this direct thing in this change happening because of the generation that asks questions, the generation that actually could, you know, especially the younger guys that I know, like the sense of humor that they bring is just awesome,
Yeah.
right? And now you mix it with the culture that you may have had before, and we're getting this golden, like you said, it's like this renaissance, you know. So that's my theory on it.
You're
You know, like
spot.
I think,
So when I really think about you bring up an excellent point. And if you think, so what are the elite, like the top elite things? Probably the pinnacle right now is Georgia smoke divers, right?
yeah,
Like that.
yeah,
What is that? That's
yeah,
buds.
yeah,
That is Navy SEAL like buds training.
yeah.
For
They
fire,
use a scroll that
right?
they use a scroll that's Army ethos, like Ranger Regiment, 75th Ranger,
Yeah,
you know, anything like that. It's
yeah,
an earned title, you know, not given, earned,
yeah.
right?
Breathing exercises. That's military, right? That's
Right.
coming. Grossman's on combat. We're all told like that's a book, right? You got to read.
Yeah.
Abershoff. What is his? It's your ship. That mentality. These are all these military books that have made their way into the fire department culture world where Jocko, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
everybody's into
Oh
Jocko,
yeah.
right? And I don't
Right.
mean that in a bad way, like
Right.
that extreme ownership and
Yeah.
dichotomy, like those
Yeah.
things have made their way in, and I think you're spot on because that's connecting with that generation of military, and we echo
Right.
that. And I've never thought about that until you've brought that up, and I mean that you're spot on. That makes all
Yeah.
the sense in the world.
If you listen to they have if you there's a YouTube video of Dennis Smith's company, the Engine 82, the Bronx is burning. And Dennis is talking about, you know, this thing about firefighters, like the people who are firefighters would have been cowboys or, you know, whale hunters or whatever, like that, the machismo thing.
Yeah,
But, you know, the heart, you know, and this goes between, you know, men or women, you know, the heart that it takes to actually do the job well. I mean, that's nothing short of amazing, you know. And like to key in on like the turd thing, like we said, nobody really wants to be a turd, you know. It, this is one of those jobs where, right, like I forget who says this, but like there are more pizza men that get killed than firefighters, right? And unfortunately, you know, pizza men or ladies, you know, delivering pizzas, that's what they died for. Or the ideal that we do our job for, the ideal that what we have, because I don't like the virtue signaling that
hmm
the fire service is getting into,
hmm
but I do appreciate the job. And that's just this warrior ethos thing that is a brotherhood, because a turd dies. If a turd dies, we'll more than likely 99% sure lie at your funeral and tell your family that you were great,
yeah,
right? Because you are a brother. You're just the brother we didn't like as much,
yeah,
right? And that's that part of it. Because there are other jobs where I don't care about, you know, so and so, they're gone. But ours, there's this respect and honor for it. And I hope that's what we can give, right? Like if we can give that to people, like, hey man, the pride of the fire service isn't just the rig, or it isn't just this. The pride of service is the actual act of what you're doing. And you don't have to tell everybody in the world that you're a fireman, right? Um, but you know that when you are going to do it, you perform. You know, don't talk about it, be about it. So yeah, I really hope that those lessons that like Jocko and them give us, because it directly relates to stress under fire conditions. You know, a firefighter goes down in a fire, and Mayday happens, and communication gets wonky, and you've got to move a company here and there, and all this is happening. You look at what they did in Ramadi, you know, and the firefights that they have. If you read, you know, the Academy of Leadership, it's nothing short of, we can learn from that, and we have.
Yeah.
We've already absorbed it, you know, and it's funny because I'm thinking right off the bat of Eddie Levy. He's a veteran. He's actually moving up in the world. He's becoming a master sergeant. He runs the LEDM program as the boss, the program manager. I think he deployed 3 times, and he was just requisitely prepared to take that role on. And like with humility, like the guy was just like, I don't know if if I should do it, but the range and scope of experience that he had for dealing with complicated, messy situations, I think we'd have less bullshit in the firehouse if we could see it from that lens.
Yeah.
Because you know those guys fight too. I mean, they have their issues too.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
It's natural. Yeah.
But let's you know, like there's a certain pride to it. You know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of went on a rant. Sorry.
No, that's what this is all about. And Timothy Wood, I'm sorry, I keep leaving you hanging. I'm not super great at managing chat and listening because I'm like you guys. I'm here to listen to what Sammy's got to say. So he says he came from a firehouse in Marines, and his whole first station was the bad boys and that kind of thing, right? And yeah, that is a constant that I've never thought about or realized is generations of firefighters are directly related to generations of warfighters.
Oh yeah.
And we're a couple years maybe behind on some of the things because it takes time for those guys to get back, write books, and do all that fun stuff. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever even heard that parallel before. That's a really cool observation. Yeah.
Right on, man.
Man, we're not even in the meat of these yet, and it's just gem after gem. So, and we've touched on a lot of the things we were going to talk about, but I think one of the biggest things that I wanted you to touch on again is leading by example, right? So we've talked about owning things and the way you communicate and teaching other people the importance of leading by example. Can you share some insight on that?
Oh man, I maybe I can say it because I don't think I'm a good leader. I'm learning how to do that role in action. To me, there's a difference if I can be a good manager, and manage an office, manage tasks, managing a fire and being a good leader, managing a call and being a good leader. I'll throw myself under the bus before anybody else can because I know you know it. And I think that's one of the things I've learned from poor leaders is we know when you screw up and we know when you try to pawn it off on us, right? I've had the pleasure of working for some terrible officers in my time, liars, right? And when somebody makes a mistake and they can't own it, I think that's the biggest thing you can do because, like we were just saying, we all fight, we all have mistakes, we all have our flaws, we all have these things that we bring to the table. And if you think that you're walking in and everyone loves you, you're wrong. And so to realize that you earn your spot every day, one of my favorite things that came out of ladder truck 3 or 3 truck was in the captain's office there. It says, you're not in charge, you are responsible, right? And you know people that are in charge. I do not want you to be in charge. I want you to be responsible, right? And some of the best officers that I had, like Dave, for instance, I was talking about Dave, who's Dave at home, at work, at church. He's going to be he Dave is going to be abrasive to his pastor because that's who Dave is, right? And he's also a gentleman. But the point is as we kind of like bridge, I don't even know how to say it now. Um, it might come back to me.
It's okay.
I kind of here's my cognitive decline. I gotta go take my medication. Uh, but I think what I'm just trying to get at is that those poor people that you learn from in leadership um, is the best reflection that you can ever have. Because if you try to fake it when you're in charge, okay, you got to realize that you cannot fake it. You have to be responsible. And I had a big, huge screw up as a step up officer at a fire about a month ago. Yeah, and I saw myself starting to. I was talking to my pal about this. When you step in a leadership role at a fire and you have very little experience at it, it's very easy. And to call it your OODA loop, your recognition prime decision making, your ability to go through files in your head and make a good decision, and your default always comes back. And I don't want to go too far in a tirade here, but anger, right? Anger is always a cover up for, I don't want to call it a weaker emotion, but a submissive emotion.
Yeah.
I'm scared. I don't know. I'm panicking. And anger, man, that makes you feel super strong. And I saw myself at this job where I went up to a fireman and was like, "Hey, how come you don't have this? What's up with your tool?" I was already paddling in my head because of the screw up, right? And as I'm trying to catch up and make decisions and see things, they're bothering me. It's like emotional attachment, right? And it shouldn't be emotionally attached. It needs to be, I think there's a part of emotion in there. I think that's what also makes this job part of the magic of it. But that part is it has to be business. That gentleman has to be there. And I have to say, "Hey, Alex, hey, I need you to do me a favor. You don't have any tools right now. I need you to go get this, this, and that. I need you to take this. I need you to go here. I don't need to bring any of my bullshit that I'm bringing in from me trying to push back, trying to fix my mistake." And so I saw this happen, and I can still see this dude's eyes. And like this is the second time I've done this to this dude. Like, the same dude, I was like, "You gotta give me more, 2.5." I was not being a gentleman. And pull the guy aside and I say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I was I was flustered, blah blah blah." I went here. I went further and I bought the crew some milkshakes and I said, "Hey, let me break this down. This is everything I did wrong the other day. This is what really good. If it wasn't for these two guys, the fire would have been a total shit show. And these guys saved the day. If it went for this, you guys did this good, good. But I want you to know something. If I'm gonna throw myself under the bus constantly, when I tell you that you're not doing something right, when I'm managing you, right? Not right or wrong. When I say, "Hey, you gotta mask up with your gloves on," it's not personal. That is not personal because the expectation is that I'm gonna be overwhelmed until I get 1,000 more of these under my belt, right? And once I start cycling through, I might have 1,000 of these under my belt, but when a firefighter goes down in a mayday, that's my first one, right? And then all of a sudden my cycle is disrupted. But if that firefighter at the door on RIT is putting their stuff on, their expectations done, I'm cycling to my next decision from a class I took, or cycling next decision from something I've studied or have practiced. And that's that part of it is like this self accountability. So I think a good leader has to be accountable for their own actions. If you're going to be about guys, having fitness, you better be one working out. I know where I have hills I'll die on, you know, um, and I think that that's what makes that person approachable. You have to be able to respect that leader. And there's going to be no respect. It'll be superficial if you're faking it. It'll be super like fake it till you make it. How about you tell guys, "I'm learning it. I'm not faking this, guys. I'm learning this role. I'm going to ask you for help. I'm going to X, Y, or Z." Don't be an officer who says, "Well, you know what? Let me test you on something. I was thinking about this call and, you know, I'm gonna give you a teaching moment. What would you do in this call? No, no. I would actually say, hey, Alex, dude, I've never had a called in fire alarm that's in trouble. We can't get in the building. Dude, have you ever had this? Are we gonna pop the door? I'm not 100% sure. I know I could call the shift commander, but has this ever happened? And you're like, oh no, no, dude, call dispatch. You're gonna hear this, you're gonna go through that, you're gonna confirm it here, and you'll be good. Thank you, Alex. But if I just leave, if I just fake it, if I just you'll know it. And I've lost you probably for my career. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's so to me, it's not about leading so much like, there's a statue at the Infantry Museum in Fort Benning. I love it. It's an officer, and he's pointing over a hill, and he says, the motto of the United States Army Infantry is "Follow me." And that first one over the hill, what that first one over the hill is going to take a bullet, more than likely, right? You're putting yourself out there first. But what makes the other people go? Because your action to take a bullet was worth, and it's inspiring, and it's enough. And so when Alex is now in charge, you're not going to feel bad about calling me, and I'm at the other station. You're like, hey, dude, you know what? I got something a little bit different this time. I'm in the room, and there's a little bit of smoke, and it's wafting, and it's lazy. I'm gonna say, Alex, hey, we're gonna do this. Dot 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 dot. Right? But you're not gonna fake it. That vulnerability of being able to ask a question, then you get confidence, and it's just that thing. You're only as strong as a leader as the people that are going to be able to move with you, And so I think that's what happens. Teach your guys to do basic things. Mask up with your gloves on. Throw a ladder by yourself. Deploy 200 foot by yourself. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because as a leader, you've got your shit to do.
Yeah.
I don't need to micromanage that. So yeah.
It's like an internal checklist, right? Like you don't have
Right.
to come back. The job's being taken care of. You know that he's going to pull the crosslay to the door, and you don't have to think about it. They're going to check it. They're going to check for a victim behind the door. Like if you're training people to do all those things while you are doing officer stuff or whatever it is, you don't have to think about it. You show up,
Right.
you're ready to work. Like that's
Right.
definitely like the mentality we should all get into. And I think that's another part of this renaissance, if we've branded it that in a way, asking why independent operators, but not really, right? We're still a team, but like
Yeah.
you get a firefighter and you tell them to go force that door. You shouldn't have to guide them on anything if you've trained them properly. And I think that's where we're transitioning to that, where the firefighter, and it's probably by necessity, right? I don't know what you guys run on your rigs. We run 3, and it's going to become 2 because the guy's standing at the pump handle, right? And so in that scenario, the firefighter's got to be able to do a lot of stuff without their officer having any direct supervision, because they're going to get out and do a 360, or they're going to go bird dog it and try to maybe go up the stairs a little bit and try to locate the fire. Like you're going to have to hump some hose by yourself. Like there's a lot of things that we're having to do out of necessity now with smaller companies that I think people have to be more that independence, that cognitive recall without being without needing to be spoon-fed what to do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's that's the part of it where I there how do we even say this? Because I don't want to be polite, but I also want to be a gentleman about it. So like our Renaissance, there are also a lot of fake Van Goghs and a lot of fake Picassos out there. Like there is a lot of not organic stuff. And what kind of gets me going this route is we collectively, if we can filter out a lot of the bullshit and just keep this renaissance towards the trade, right? Because I do, like, I don't have my own personal social media. I do the one for our department training, but like I noticed this thing where you can go far left or far right, politics or whatever, and you can go that way with a media profile, what you think, what people think you are going to be, what you're about. And when it get to the so far on the left side of virtue signaling, or you get so far on the right side of, we're hardcore, you're missing the one thing here, and it's just the work that matters. And my hope is that we can dial in and truly define what's going to happen in our education. Because, and I don't, who says this? It might have been Aaron too, but I think it's Aaron, the fire service industrial complex, right? Like this machine that is running the information for our fire academies, that runs information for the manuals, like why we have PFAS, that were cool by the NFPA, why rigs don't have to have true, direct plumbing that doesn't, goes that kind of disrupts the balance between theoretical and applicable. And so here's this issue that we have, where if we can truly designate a three-man company to be a self-sufficient team, and we haven't locked this down like carpenters, where our language is so streamlined. Like our engines don't have to look the same, but we both have three guys on our rigs, and we both lose somebody at the pump panel, and we both have to have working bosses, and we both have to have firefighters or heads on a swivel. And so this is one of the things, and I don't know if it's original, but it's one of the things that I've been teaching. Is it's a part of that rule of three, that it's this constant that's been happening now. Is if an officer is responsible for a 360 and you're the driver, you're responsible for a 180. You own the domain from your engine to the home, hydrant to hydrant. I don't need you to look at anything behind it. I own that 360, but you back me up on the 180. And the pipemen, they back me up on a 90. They control their domain. And if you look at that, all of a sudden we have if this then that thinking. We can take the skills that we have, and let's just say you're the driver. We have new guy pipeman, and I'm your step up boss for the day. And we have a Charlie side fire, and we pull up. You see a hydrant 50 foot in front of me. You call it out. See, Sam, we've got a hydrant I can tag. Okay, cool. When I go do my 360, engine, whatever, we've got our own hydrant. They know that they're going to back down. They're not going to have to bring anything else to you. They're happy. You're controlling traffic for me. Hey, truck, back down. Hey, next engine, come up. Like, there are assumed roles that I can give you without having to have my ego stepped on. If there becomes emergency traffic, to shut the hell up. But in your 180, you're responsible. I come around and make my circle. I say, Alex, we're going to be stretching to Charlie's side. You say, Sammy, I see smoke coming from the chimney. Alex, it's a basement fire. Thanks, dude. All units be advised. Look, they have a basement fire. ... And so all of this assumed thinking of this and that pipeman's like, cool. I have to own the 200 feet all the way to the Charlie side. So I'm going to stretch the back set this, hook a left, hook a right. I'm going to reverse my attack bundle, this way, whatever. And it's funny because I could be saying some things to some firefighters with a lot of great experience. They're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about. But my hope is that we can get three firefighters to talk that language. And it really is simple. Hey, go forward, split reverse. That's all supply language. But we can apply the same language to attack line. That's golden. It's all the same shit. If we can apply the same 360, 180, 90, and the decisions in there and the information you relay, we create something golden. I just had a fire in Lansing. They had 7 guys show up to a slab fire, and it was great because they had everything done by the time they get there. They did it with 7 guys because they're training, right? And they're taking care of their assumed roles, and they're communicating, and they're doing all the right things. And it's like, and this is what I like about being on a smaller department. You talk to any of my pals that are on bigger departments, they're like, man, you guys go to fires with 12 people. And I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. Like my running joke, because I'm a truck driver now, and is that if it wasn't for freelancing, I wouldn't do any lancing at all. Like, I get to do every job on the fire ground.
Yeah.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? And that's why us our group, everything that we're picking up from the greats, man. I'm sure at some point you'll probably get Ray McCormack or Dennis or Chief Hoff or any of these guys that come from this massive amount of pedigree, and we're taking the lessons that they learned and we're dissecting it and we're applying it finally. We're not just doing some backyard yokel firefighting. The volunteers, man, they're improving their game. They're getting ate up for the job.
Yeah.
And so that's what I like. I just want that renaissance to stay right there. No frauds. No frauds allowed.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you if you're gonna talk about it, you better be able to do it.
Yeah.
Like that's like I don't outlaw motorcycle gangs. You can't be in the motorcycle gang if you can't keep the bike upright.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You got to do crime, man. And that's what we want of all our guys. You got to perform. So I don't give a shit about your muscles or your workout routine, and I don't care about what your attitude is. I care that it's this perfect blend. But you want thinking hardcore firefighters, right? You want guys that are just going to be ate up for that job.
You don't. Yeah. You don't want a guy standing in the front yard with a pike pole waiting for someone to tell him what to do, right?
Right. Right.
And like where I came from in the volunteer world, I started paid on call, and I mean, and it's not like they were bad at the time. Some of it was by necessity because they couldn't train people. I mean, I was a 19-year-old
Right. Oh
kid
yeah.
with 10 minutes out of the academy, and I'm going to fires, and so it was that. But I was fortunate enough in that realm where when we were called back, everyone in the town basically came in, and we'd have a 6-person truck, we'd have an 8-person squad, so
Yeah.
I could just partner up with a guy who's been a volunteer for 40 years or some weird crap like that, and hey kid, come here, I'll show you.
Right.
Like that doesn't even exist in the volunteer world anymore,
No.
let alone the full-time paid world. You're
Right.
you're on and you're on.
Right.
And I try to tell our new guys when they get hired, like, you're your officer's number 2 guy. Like,
Right.
yeah, like you're talking about the 360, 180, 90, right? Yeah, like the engineer for us, yeah, you're doing a lot of assistant work. Hey Lou, did you see that? Hey Lou, I take care of that for you. Hey, I got this for you. Like you're doing a lot of those things, right? But at the end of the day, they're not going inside,
Right.
right? At the end of the day, like you could have a guy who's been on for 3 minutes and
Yeah.
he's got to recognize flashover conditions. He's got to recognize where he is in the building. Like those are things that, like, we need to do a better job before they get to that point in fire academies and so on and so on to instill that, like, hey, it's okay for you to think. There's nothing wrong with you thinking.
So there you go, right? And I think we're, so the way I've seen fire academies go, and this is not blasting anybody. This is a general statement because I work for a very good place, and I've seen plenty of different, environments. But the yelling, hardcore shit doesn't teach anybody anything. And I will use this until the day I die. I can guarantee you that if I'm going to have the plumbing done at my house, I want a plumber during their apprenticeship. They never got yelled at. They had a good environment they learned in. They got taught to think. They got taught to solve problems, and they got taught to be calm. Because you know what? That plumber is not going to kill my family or themselves while they're working on that job. Oh, if they sweat the pipe like an idiot. But you see what I'm saying? Like, there's no part in that trade where, it's like, hurry up, you got to get 20 elbows in right now. No, no. They're treated like apprentices. I'm gonna get you here, get you here. Here are the steps. Here's the objective. There you go. There you go. Now, maybe on the job, you get a lot of shit. That's fine. But our on the job training is, there you go. Day one, right out of the door, you can get a fire. And just like that, you're not going to recognize a flashover condition, and you put yourself in a spot where you're not flowing water because you've never flowed real water in a learning setting, right? And that's a big narrative that the Renaissance is challenging, that you can flow water, that 3 people can show up to a house fire and apply, X amount of gallons from your large diameter hose for whatever tip you have, and be effective and put a stop on something because they know what they're doing. And that's that part of it. Our on the job training isn't like an apprentice where the tricks of the trade are just going to happen. Like we're lucky. I have had those people like that 40-year volunteer was like, hey, this is what you want to do, X, Y, and Z. We don't have that. And like I look at my department who's becoming extremely young, my time is limited. And as that starts to go out, if I'm not one being a good leader by being honest and saying this is where I screw up, this is where I get bad, this is where I hope you're better when you're in my role, blah 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 blah. But then documenting, giving them the whys. This generation wants to know the why, and that's perfect. If you can't explain it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And so I like where this is going. As that gets the push, I want the bullshit taken out of it. The frauds that try to post an image of, I don't care where your pedigree is from anymore. I care about that you actually know the job. And that's that thing is that like when you meet that instructor, and I've had the pleasure to get to meet a lot. I'm just pleasure because I'm a nerd, man. I'll take classes. The real deal because these guys, they tell you what went bad in their career, right? I was thinking of like you were talking about like the crew, like that guy in the front yard with a pike pole. Um, you know, yeah, that everyone knows that. I've been that guy, and I took this class we were talking about the Fools earlier.
Yeah.
The Muddy River Fools, they're freaking amazing. I'm telling you, if you ever need some mentorship, talk to Dave Dabowski. You got the Brew City Fools. Like you got a lot of good mentorship. But brother Dave is the man. He had Ray McCormick down last year, and Ray was doing his roller coaster leadership class, and he was talking about his crew being pit bulls. He said, I want my crew to be a bunch of dogs. I want a bunch of pit bulls. He says, I want to be able to hold them on the leash, and they're cool. They're not ever pulling me. They're always a foot behind me, and they're cool. Someone wants to come pet them, go ahead. No, go ahead. They'll get the pet, so they'll go on their belly, right? When I tell them to go bite, they're off the leash, and I know what they're going to do. They're going to bite, and I say stop biting. They're going to come back. Now, if anybody looks at it like, oh, the way you're talking about dogs, nah, man, that's loyalty, that's intelligence, that's training, right? And if in that analogy, it was funny because like we were talking about like the Scooby book, which is good, like the mutts thing. You know, I don't necessarily want a purebred. Sometimes the purebreds, they're the dumbest dogs, they're the weakest, the health problems. I want some pit bull that has all kinds of different mixes in it, but it's a hell of a dog, right? I want just a good, loyal dog. And when you have that, man, there's nothing better. When you get that I guess it's kind of lame to say like a synergy of a crew,
Oh, but
that
that's
just it's magical. And if you can get them so dialed in where you keep if this then that. Hey, I step off the rig and I call for rescue mode, the engineer knows to grab a ladder, right?
yeah.
And the officer continues at 360 and the pipeman's masking up, blah, blah, blah. And it's seamless. Man, I mean, really, like what are the other priorities that you have at that point? Communicate, make a decision. And you absolutely can have plays. You know what? Tanner, no, dude, not Alpha, Charlie. Okay, you have a ladder in your hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so here it is. Here's the leash. Pull you back. No, no, no. Go bite there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I that's I think that's the next evolution in training firefighters. We're right there. Everyone recognizes it, and
Yeah.
that's what it's becoming. That right. Even when I go take a class now, for the most part, and every so often I still get one of those weird where you're a 4-person company, which like that just and I get it at the same time. So I was looking into I love Bobby Halton, and I've been a Bobby Halton
Oh,
fan,
yeah.
right? And And one of the things he did for fire engineering was he would never post an article, and I didn't know this. I don't remember where I heard it. He would never post an article about short-staffed companies ever. And the reason behind that was because he didn't want some chief or some administrator to pick that up and go, "Oh, those guys make it happen with three, with two." And
Right.
I'm not advocating for two. My God, three is the absolute minimum that you can really do. But so he would never post articles about that, which is great. He was trying to protect us, and I'm all about that, about trying to keep our staffing models up. But now we're at a point where like that's reality. So whether or not we want it to be a 3-person engine company is irrelevant. That's what we're living in. So we need to shift to train to be able to do that. And you need to, I don't know, we have to learn new techniques. I don't even know what industry standard stuff exists. Like nozzle forward, it's still two people, right? And that changed my life, and I'm all about nozzle forward. And yeah, you could do like a clamp slide, and you could do those things by yourself, but on carpet, upstairs, like you have to find ways to just do it without real techniques. And I don't know where those techniques are going to exist and come out, but they're not quite there yet where they're widespread, where we're teaching that type of engine company or truck company.
Yeah. So, dude, so this goes into the training officer thing. And like anybody, I'm not like, oh, I've been in 1,000 fires. It just, I'm lucky. I got a community to the east of us that goes to a lot more fires. They didn't have fires. I don't think I'd go to any, but had a fire where I was a guest driver, and it was one of those calls for rescues. They get a call that there's a family on a balcony. The captain's real calm gentleman. He's like, all right, we're going to rescue mode, and I was a second due engine, and I go to get a water supply, and I'm looking. And I'm at the hydrant, so I pull 5 inch. I get to the hydrant. It's on a corner. And I have this 180 view. That's why I love calling it the 180. And I got this 180 view as I'm turning, and there are guys, assholes with ladders, left and right. And as people are coming off of balconies, there's a tower ladder going up, and I see the driver of the first engine. He's a step-up driver. Now he's not a ranked engineer, but this dude's 8 up. He loves training. He's pulling off the back, off the rear, and he gets a hose bundles to the door, and the way he gets them flaked out, and the way the crews, by the time I made it in, because our guys, it's actually a part of our SOG. If you're the second up driver, third up driver, you better get your ass inside after you've supported. And I get to make it in, and seeing the way this line came out now, and like you nailed it. Like, hey man, what techniques are there? It is the refinement of applicable and theoretical. And we've been doing too much theoretical for so long. Like the theoretical of pistol grips. Like, all right, everyone doesn't like them, but why? Let me tell you the why. Take your automatic adjusting fog nozzle at 164 PSI and put it here in flow water, or take that same, nozzle with the same PSI and put it an arm's length in front of you with a bail off to the left and control it with the hip grip. But you have to have that repetition, and like again, we're like that recognition prime decision making. Once you elevate your heart past 120, audible exclusion, everything happens. Your technique falls out, and you deviate to pulling guarding hose, because that's what you do the most. You wash more rigs than you fight fires. That's the bottom line, right? And some of us wash more rigs than others. So. The point that I'm getting to is if we can get there, Alex, like there is a way. And I'm not saying, holy shit, I figured it out.
Yeah.
But the simple shit, the way this captain has been working with his crew training, it worked. Because he said rescue, and there are assholes coming out of every corner with the ladder, right? He says, we're going offensive, interior, skid low, bop, 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 bop. The driver, without making a hesitation, estimates the stretch, right? And to see that, now we have plenty of fires that go left or right. The last fire I had where I was a step-up guy, I screwed that fire up. And to see where that can get corrected in training, to see where we can fix that, we're like right there, dude. But I think we have so you're a training guy too, right? When you go through your JPRs, like look at what your 3-year plan, what it says for pulling hose. pull a charge attack, pull a dry attack line to blah 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 for interior entrance into a structure. It does not say anything about pull a line of the Charlie side of the building for a basement fire attack with a setback from door to fence of 15 feet. How do you manage 100 foot? We got it, dude. We got it. That information is there. It's just rural anywhere United States or suburbs of Chicago or New York. We are just not on the same page of that. And people say it all the time, but you do want thinking firefighters. You do want guys that are back at the job that challenge you because they're curious. But you get a curious firefighter who comes in and is like, hey, why do we have a pistol grip? And you're like, because. Okay, well, we all know we don't like because.
Yeah.
And hey, dude, indulge that. Well, tell me what you think. All right, prove me wrong. Just talking to a pal who's a wrestler, it's like, you get a kid on the wrestling mat. You're like, no, coach, I want to do it this way. I want to do it this way. It's okay. Why don't you do it your way and show me how it goes? And it's like two out barbecue or something like that. Like you screw up 2 times in your barbecue, you're benched, you're out. And you can prove by the work, hey man, the hip grip is going to work here, and it's not going to work when you make this right if your partner hasn't pushed the hose left.
Yeah.
Right. And in drill, your JPRs don't reflect that.
No.
And so nobody shows a training officer that, if I told you an engineer's throw or a contractor's throw, you might know it, you may not, you might have different language for it. But we should all understand that there is a benefit and a negative for fly out, fly in, whatever. But it's a decision.
Yeah.
Right. And here's that thing, and I love that this is an outlier. I hope that your show, by the time you hang up the mic, we don't have outliers, dude. Like if we can have, and it's a dream, I'm gonna dream like John Lennon over here, dude. If we can have a point, like how much better, like it's not. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. The turds versus us. I'm the turds turd. You know what I mean? Like my job should be, I want everyone to perform to the bar here, but we set the bar so low, and then our other actions, everything else we do in the firehouse, just screws that all up. So, I hope this momentum, if we can keep that going, but do it with some love, do it with some respect. Stop talking so much shit, guys. Stop stabbing people in the back. I know more people that will just smile on your face and shake your hand, and just as soon as you walk away, they're just,
Yeah.
have it out. Don't shake people's hands. If you don't like somebody, tell them, but still work. You're still here for the same reason, And so I think we're, to like round that back to the warrior thing, like that's the truth of it. There's no bullshit in the foxhole. Like they say there's no atheists in the foxhole. And I think that metaphor is that there's no bullshit. You only have one reality. And here's our reality. If you don't like me and I don't like you, neither of us really want each other to die on the job. And so we have to raise that bar. That bar has to be freaking right here. And unfortunately, the fire service that we inherited is influenced by 2 different manufacturers of books, and they don't agree on a lot of things.
Yeah, that is really
right.
That's tough. And
sorry, dude.
No, the book. No, I'm with you. And the book is not the reality. And I get that there has to be some sort of standard type thing where people sit down and they decide what's probably the best for everyone. But that's not just our struggle either. In our area, everyone's dealing with that same thing. How do you teach firefighters to really be firefighters? Like to get rid of that ramp up period where you get out of the academy and then, you end up on the job and someone comes up and goes, all right, you learned all that stuff in the academy. This is how it really is in the street. Like there shouldn't even be a gap like that. It should just come out of the academy and you're kind of into that. Yeah, you got to teach things at a crawl, walk, run pace, but there's a point. Like I never in the fire academy, I never was on a hose line with less than 4 people ever.
Right. Yeah. You're an engine company.
And
No,
since
you're not.
then, I probably was on a hose line with more than 2 people a handful of times,
Right.
right? And
Right.
and luckily, like, yeah, there's things that exist like nozzle forward. I mean, we could talk about that all friggin' night. I thought I knew how to move line, and then I did that class, and I was like, I was terrible. And
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, like I also, like you were talking about before with technique and all that, like when I was in my early 20s and I was just a kid coming down to the firehouse and going to fires, like my body was fine. If I was bad at something, it didn't matter. Like I'm not huge, but I'm 6 feet
Right.
tall. Like I'm a bigger guy, and like I
Yeah.
was a heel man for everything, and I was good at it because I just was big and I threw hose. Well, now I'm realizing like I just kind of bowled through things and I never actually had any strategy. And then I took nozzle forward and I was like, oh my god, I'm not tired from humping hose. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready to do the job, not just get all the hose to the place to do the job. So
Have you taken any of Hiddle's classes, Sam Hiddle?
I've heard the name, but no, I haven't.
Dude, Sam Hiddle is what Aaron does for engine. Sam Hiddle has done for truck and does for truck.
Yeah,
So and like this is what I really enjoy talking about you is like you're very willing to like put yourself out there for what you've said or what you've done and that you change or like, hey man, I had to do it this way. So I came up in the early fire service and volunteer to full time was an 8 pound, axe is the only axe for forcible entry, and a 12 pound sledge is probably the best thing you can bring to a roof. And like, dude, like that's why I wanted to get jacked. Like, all right, man, I'm gonna bring a 10 pound sledgehammer to a roof, an 8 pound flathead, and Hiddle, who's he's pretty jacked, dude, but he is. I think he has a master's in physics. During his presentation, like he picks up he calls everything hammers, kind of cool. But an axe, an 8 pound axe, and a 6 pounder. He says, all right, hold them both at the same height. Which one do you want to hit your foot? And everyone's like 6 pounds. And then he says, all right, leave the 8 foot where it is, but you take the 6 foot and you put it here. Which one do you want to hit your foot? And everyone's like, not the 6 pounder or the 8 pounder, right? The 6 pounder is going to hurt more because it has inertia, it has force and energy. And like, yeah, like we get taught this ego thing. Like, oh man, if it's a 6 pounder, you're not throwing a real tool. You want a surgeon with your tool.
yeah,
If you can't be a surgeon with an 8 pounder, you better go to a 6 pounder, and it doesn't make anything less. It's just so funny. Like it's like so bullshido. You ever heard of bullshido?
oh,
So it's this. There's this whole. It's like the fire service in a way. It's like this group of outliers that have been teaching people, the last 20 years. There's this one of the guys that follows this. He's a Chinese MMA fighter, and he goes around and he'll fight Wing Chun fighters and Shaolin monks and all this stuff. And he's been banned. He's had all his fighting licenses taken away because he exposes a lot of martial arts for not being legit. Like the form and the function is not real. And it's all based out of simple things. You hear it from Sam, you hear it from Aaron, the triangle, rule of threes, etc., etc. And this fighter is just destroying these other guys because his techniques are based in truth. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, Sambo, boxing, Muay Thai, just sound, solid mechanics, solid technique, right? And they're not based off of brawn. They're not based off of ego. They're not based off of show and tell. So what's cool as long as it keeps that next generation sees this, that it is about technique. It is about learning a trade. It is about being smart about the job. Yeah, blue collar job. And, I could dare say that electricians can be just as smart as some doctors that I know, for sure. Right. So, it is an intelligent job. It's just a violent job. Right. We have a
yeah.
violent job. And it has to be that. It has to be this mix of intelligence and violence and ethos and all this other stuff. So, yeah, sorry.
No, that's what this is all about, man. It's Like I keep every so often I keep checking like the stuff to give you a heads up about what we're gonna chat about, and it's like there's no whatever. We're just
Yeah, whatever.
we're just talking to talk, and that makes it
Dude,
even better.
I'm just eyeing the toys back there. I
I
know Ruby
know.
and Ari would be into it, and your guys would be interested in our play
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
I'm digging it. My ADD is getting to me at some points.
No, that's good. Oh
I like
man,
the treehouse.
I mean, yeah, we got climbing blocks, we got paw patrols,
Yes.
we got everything down here. Although my little one's starting to climb, and he's not
Yeah.
afraid of anything right now. He's climbing up. We have a cardboard slide upstairs in one of their rooms, and he's climbing up it, and he's not even one yet. We're like, dude, stop! Like
Yeah.
we can't. You gotta
So
stay.
how is that for you? Like being because I know you got a 1 year old and a 3 year old. Like, because that was like I have my issues. I've had my issues throughout my life. Relationships and stuff. And nothing has ever been more real than having kids. Because just at the beach with my kids, and the day before with the storms, there was rip currents, rip tides, or whatever. And like I've never had my head more on a swivel and been more nervous trying to have a good time
Yeah,
in my life. Like you're on the job, you got a cardiac, full arrest, or you're pinning or whatever. You're enjoying it because you're doing what you want to do, and you're protective of the people, and you're protective of this. But like this thing that happened now with having kids, like man, it's a whole nother realm of growing.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like
When I so my wife doesn't work now, but she did work when with my first son. So I would do my 24/48, and for that 48, it was me and my son at home, and that was it. And
yeah,
what I learned about myself in those moments was that lacked my I lacked patience. I needed to learn more patience. The things from fire service coming over, and like you're talking about like muscling things into place and not technique and all that stuff. And the phrase that I love is when plan A doesn't work, we try plan A harder, right? Like that was me in a nutshell with a lot of things in my life. And you know, until you're until you got a kid who's squirming and screaming at you, and all you want to do is change the poopy diaper on on the top of the changing table, and no matter what you say, no matter what you do, he doesn't care. He's going to keep rolling. He's going to keep screaming, and you just got to fight through it. You can't reason with him. You can't talk your way out of it. You're just at the mercy of that kid screaming at you and flipping around. Like, I didn't know that I needed more patience in my life until I was experiencing those things, and I've grown so much more because of that now, where it's like, what? Like, I can't control this. It's okay. Like,
yeah,
he'll be fine.
yeah.
It's gonna be all right. If I get some poop on something, it's okay. I can wipe it up later. And but it was a total shift, and it's taught me patience now into other things in my life, including the fire service, right? About not trying to control every little thing, and there's some things that you just got to roll with, pun intended. Hopefully not roll into poop, but
Yeah.
like you just got to live with some of those things. And I'm not. It's not like I'm on the other end of that. I still am like, there's times where you get frustrated with a kid. Like my oldest doesn't like to eat as much right now, and so you're like, dude, I literally just cooked you all this
Yeah.
food. Like, really? And for a moment, because we're so used to being able to control, right? And especially like
Yeah.
the fire side, yeah, we can control for some, but like on the ambulance side of it, like you dictate what happens, right? You're
Oh
in
yeah.
complete control. You're pushing the medication, every action you do, like it, it's not like there's a weird, crazy dynamic that can't be explained, or like a fluke thing that happens, like a wind-driven fire, or somebody opens a
Yeah.
window
Right.
you don't know about, right? If you're treating someone with low blood sugar, they got low blood sugar. It's not that hard, right? You just give them the medicine, so you're in complete control. But I learned like with having kids and taking care of children, you have no control over anything
No.
at all. And
No.
it pushed me to be more patient and communicate better and be more calm with things, because they just amp up when you're amped up. I mean, what a parallel to the fire ground. Everyone gets amped up when you're amped up and trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to do those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
kids totally changed me. Totally different man.
Right.
100%.
You're speaking to my soul. I was so like it was like flickering in my head, as you said that. so tonight I read my daughter. It's like got this huge volume of Dr. Seuss books about reptiles, and we got to a crocodile, and it showed a crocodile eating something, and she was like, "Why is a crocodile eating that little guy?" Because she's super into little pets, like little cute things, and she saw a little cute crocodile, and then she saw a crocodile eating something. She's like, Why is it eating it?" And like I feel like so confident, at the job, like, oh, well, because you know what, nozzle reaction when it expels out the tip, I can. And you know what? I probably have more guys that are like, oh, they just tune out, and they're just okay. I get it now. Well, my daughter's like, well, why? Why do they eat each other? I said, well, because when we eat, energy. I'm like trying really hard. Why do we need energy there? Well, we need energy because that's what sustains us. Like I try to just really give it to her.
You're getting the
Because
whiteboard out, like, all right,
maybe that's going to stop the why, because I know it's ridiculous. I know I don't have to explain, cellular structure to her, but I just start jamming. I'm like, oh, it's because of this. She's like, why? And at the end, I'm like, well, I don't know why we exist. Like holy shit, like and like for my parallel of that is like you just can't know everything. And again, like I think we talked about it, like you get to this point, like when I think about who Captain Sam could have been or could be, he's also going to tell me you don't know everything. You have to figure it out. You have to. And that's, you got no other choice though. Hey, your kid doesn't want to eat, you have to figure it out,
yeah.
right?
Guess who's getting chicken
And if
nuggets
you
every
if you
day?
if you go the negligent side, you're a bad parent. You got to figure it out, dude.
Yeah,
Right? It's just funny that parallel, because you can grow as much as you want in the firehouse. Those guys aren't your kids.
no,
To a degree, they got to listen to you,
yeah.
right?
At some point,
Or,
sometimes,
right? At some point, it's
or they go
sometimes.
away.
Right? Exactly.
Your kid's diaper is
Right?
never going to change itself,
No,
right?
no, no. And it just keeps going more.
Yeah,
You know. So it's cool. It's cool, that kind of growth. It's cool to be able to talk that about it.
yeah.
It's
Weird things, or I should say weird things, but things you would never expect to change you. And
no.
yeah, being a parent, obviously everyone anticipates it's going to change you, but like I didn't realize the level and like at my core of what it's done for me
Yeah.
in every aspect of my life, right? So
Yeah.
it's obviously I love it, and I love my kids, and like it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could tell, man. Yeah, it's great. Kids are awesome, man.
yeah,
It changes everything, well, it's a lot like this. It's the drive to, we know the world is shitty. I mean, let's call it what it is, man. The freaking Gulf current's going to collapse. Whatever's happening in the, politics and country falling apart or the world wars, but you just want to make the world better for them, right? That's it. Like that's your only, like, I want them to have a good life. I want the world to be good. And that's what we want for our guys. That's what we want for ourselves. We want to go and have a good day. We want, and like that's the other thing. I was talking with our recruits. I was like, I don't want anyone to get burnt up in a fire. That's the reality. I got a pal. He's one of my best friends. He had a family member that died in a fire, and this kid is an aggressive fireman, and he loves going to fires. And it really hit me that guys like him, it's not that they wish for fires. They want to be the guy that does the work. And like, there's no better thing to me than being the person that, hey, Alex is here. Alex, go fix that on the roof. Alex, hey man, get down there, dot, 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 give me a report, you know? And I just can't imagine. I know there's that small percentage of people that are just here for the check. Maybe it's larger, but I would hope that we can show that there you can learn, and that it can be positive, and that it can be a good thing, because it's a lot like raising kids. Like you have to raise them the right way. You yell at them, they're going to yell back. You say it's going to be this way. You can't explain something, they're going to ask why. If you bullshit about it, they're going to know you lied at some point, right?
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
it's just really cool, man. You know, we talked about changing your mindset from where you were. I'm always going to be that turd, but I know I'm that turd, and so there's nothing you're going to tell me that's going to change that.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can say you can't hurt me about that, so it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Uh, this point in the show, I will throw this out here too. If anyone has questions for Sammy, throw them in here. Last time I didn't do such a good job, and I lost all you guys because there's like a 10-second delay. So if you got anything, throw it in there. Otherwise, we're gonna roll into a couple things. Uh, we're coming on almost 2 hours here, which it doesn't feel like it, which is awesome. And we've talked about all the stuff in the middle, so I think I would maybe we could roll into um, the closing questions that I have, and I'm pretty sure those will take us a half hour at least anyway. So it'll be good. I've kind of been trying to tweak these, and I really am trying to pull the right or give the right question to get like the information that I'm trying to make people think about, right? So very first one, and we've talked about this theme multiple times tonight, and that's what's one mistake that you've made that you've learned from?
Oh yeah, I'll just put on the last job I had, where I stepped up was a long story short, um, responded for an AFA and had the laziest smoke I've ever seen. And I had one thing on my mind. It's, 12 in the morning. These guys are going to be out, in staging. You know, I got nothing. This is probably just a burnt up Glade plug-in. Get the guys to go to sleep. Just send them back, return them right away. Blah 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 blah. And the pipeman I had was good. The ambulance company I had with me, the station response was good. And like that that pit of my stomach that was just like, oh shit, like there's something wrong here. But this other part of me was like, oh, the guys want to go back to sleep. The guys, could free up for another call. And it turned out to be a pretty good fire, or decent one, in a unit below us, that was pushing smoke through uh, uh, lath and plaster, then a stud space, and then communicated, oh, blah 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 blah. It's interesting. Anyway, was to stay focused on what your SOG is. It gives you clear direction. Like the rules are the rules. The rules of engagement are the rules. Like you take that one moment to be lax and be the nice guy or the cool guy. Like, we got this. No, dude. Like go above and beyond. Like, you know what? I got a bad feeling here. I don't care if I hold you here for 15 more minutes. You know what? In fact, no, everyone come up. Let's figure this out. And you know what? If it turned out to be nothing that night, and the guys are like, "Oh man, Sammy's, kind of gun shy about this." I already had it, where I've been on that call 99 times where it was bullshit, and on the 100th time it was real. I don't care now what people would have thought about following the rules. That's one of those things with like LDDM. It's interesting, um, is that there is black and white. There's 100% the rules, and when you deviate, you know, you put yourself in that role. If you can justify it left or right, that's okay. You make a decision on it. The actions that I did take, they were right for this, and we did appropriate response. But what I learned about myself is to slow that down and to realize like what are my steps. We talked about a mental checklist: hit, 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 hit. And when you don't have experience like say driving or pumping or X or Y, be able to ask, be able to own up, be able to say, shit, I got a question. Hey, this doesn't look right. So I think like recently, like that is something I'm going to share for the rest of my career, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome lesson there for sure. Um, over the course of your career, have you ever lost your passion for the fire service? And
Oh,
if so, what keeps you passionate now?
I think that the loss of my passion was called Tuesday. I think it happens. It happens once a week. So no, I lost my passion the biggest in 2016. I had a guy who wrote me up for having too many tools. He didn't like that I bought my own tools, and it was constant, oil and water kind of thing. And I just saw an environment that, it just wasn't where I wanted to be. So I tested, and so I actually tested out west. I actually got hired out west, and I decided to ride before I took the job. And I went there, and I see two guys arguing in the bay, and then I noticed that the firehouse was just like my firehouse, and no matter what was on social media, wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it was like, wow, man, same circus, different clowns. And I had this transition of years where I was putting in this work, and it just seemed fruitless, man. Like nothing was coming from it, and all I did was get beat up by people whose opinions didn't matter. You know, People who I would shake their hands but hate them. I should have just stopped shaking their hands. I should have just stopped engaging in that bullshit. But what I did is I turned it on myself, and I said, well, the world here sucks. The thing that changed was I dug my heels in, and I was just talking to a fella from your neck of the woods. Um, I said digging my heels in didn't happen because it was just me and I'm tough and I could do it. I was able to do it because I had support, and I told my friend, or told, I think he's my friend now, but I told this gentleman, I said, find your Mikey. There's a guy in my department. He's like my little brother, and he went with me to all the classes. And when I showed him the information, he ate it up. Now he's teaching me stuff. Now he's calling me out. I'm like, nah, bro, you're wrong, Sam. I'm like, bro, you're right. And that changed everything because once I had Mike, people didn't see Mikey like the turd I was. Because Mikey has been a gentleman. Mikey has had that part where Mikey's been stellar his whole career, to me at least. I think to almost everybody. And once he came, he brought in another. And once another came, another and another. And then the conversation happens. And I'm watching and I'm hearing a story about, hey, Mikey and so were training in the Bay. And the person that was training with Mikey would never be in the Bay with me. And I realized, like, man, like that's awesome. To also realize I was a part of the problem, to also realize I couldn't do it alone, and to also realize that digging your heels in meant taking the shit, you know. And so, the biggest thing was finding that support. But things like this is just like when Ron says it all the time. I'll go out and I'll teach with him, or we'll go, I'll go to a class that he's teaching at, and we're having a beer and shooting the shit, talking shop with a bunch of guys, and it could be a bunch of students, it could be all the heavy hitters, all the it's what's so great about some of the conferences is that you could just hang out like, oh shit, Brian Brush is around the corner.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask him, a question about the Camel a lot, and like, that's that thing is you get your battery recharged, and that was a part of it, is finding that group. Like, I'll plug him a little bit, but my pal Clem does the Yard Foundation and Hifty. Like Hifty's like that satire thing, but the part of that there is what they do through the Yard is they find like this community, and a true community of guys who really give a shit. And you get that through this, you get that through conferences, and that was the biggest part, man. It brought back my passion, and so whenever Tuesday, Monday, Friday, whatever day I choose to lose my passion this week because I'm feeling beat up, I text Mikey or I text Adam. I text Aaron. Hey dude, have you seen this roof? And they're like, oh shit, look at this. Da, da, da. They send me something, or they just vent, or they just, you got to find your Mikey.
Yeah, awesome advice. Yeah, for sure. Sorry, that's
No.
um. This one always. I asked this one on shift yesterday around the dinner table because this is. I tried to phrase it better, and I stole it out of a book. I can't remember what the name of the book, but I changed the phrasing a little bit to be more fire servicey. And It's if you wanted to give someone a sense of how the fire service culture should work by meeting one person, who would it be, alive or dead?
Hmm. Yeah, I would just the conversations that I've had with him one on one or any of the times in classes, it's Fields, 100%. If you listen to his field or his keynote address, you know, because for me, the initial part in the fire service, for me, there was a lot of racial bullshit that I saw, and I hated it. It's changed a ton. It's a 180. It's completely different now. But his background with his pops and his brother and his life in general, and then us being able to accept each other as a culture and what we're going to build, it would have to be him because there's no more part of it where you when you look for wisdom or you look for advice or you're looking for direction, you want that pedigree, you want understanding, and you want patience, and you want somebody who knows how to get their ass kicked. Some of my best friends right now are guys that train not only the fire service, but they hit the gym, not just working out, but like they go and they get their ass kicked rolling on the mat, and he Aaron embodies that. Like he has his own gym, and there's nothing more to me that says the fire service about you get knocked down constantly. We kind of get used to medical calls. They go left or right because there's nothing you can control about trouble breathing. Other like get a CPAP, let me get this, let me get that, and you have that control. But we also take getting put down on the mat at a fire like really bad, and I think it should also round itself out to like when we screw up, like we need to go hit the mat even harder, we need to go back in the gym even harder, and that's what he says. You have to look at yourself and self-reflect every day. So it definitely be him.
Yeah, awesome person as an ambassador to everything. And if you're still listening live here too, he's gonna be in Bartlett.
Yeah, dude.
And
Hell yeah.
so I'm going because
I'll see you there.
yeah, when you go once, you get to go for free again. And my training officer, he didn't believe that at first. I was like, no, like you,
Yeah.
you can. And I actually I get on. This is and Aaron Fields is amazing. So I go on a website, I email, and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. He might not let me go. Like I'm going to go. I know that that's what your thing is. I just need to be able to explain it to him, and like I have to be able to be approved by the department because if I get hurt, like I'm screwed, and
Right.
like I got a family to take care of. And he's like, yeah, we talk through. I'm like, can I just call you on the phone? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Call up Aaron Fields on the phone and talk to him about the whole thing. And he goes, yeah, I'll call your training officer. I'll call Bartlett, whatever you need. Just show up. You're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
That's why he's the embodiment of it, man.
right? It's
It's
so. Yeah, I'll see you there.
He's
Which
not
is
driving
cool.
a Bentley.
Yeah,
There are guys in the fire service that they cost like $5,000 a weekend, and you got to fly. Like, and I get it. That's their jam. That's what they do. You know, um, but nobody I know lets you come to their class for free,
no,
or not even free. Call it an audit. Took the class, come back and get the
yeah,
work in.
yeah,
There's nothing better than that.
yeah,
That to me, that embodies the fire service because again, you're not hoarding it. There's no magic, and like we do that a lot with the engine class. I took Slayer's class. Chris Slayer does the exponential engine. Took over for Brush, and he starts off his talk. He's like, nothing I say is original. It's all been stolen from Brush, Andy Fredericks, Ray McCormack, Fields. Goes down the line, and you know that's a huge thing that I also hope we can see. I get it, the people that take care of the family out of teaching, because a lot of guys get retired and that's what they do. And the as long as we're not pimping out the fire service, like let's not sell it out.
yeah,
I'm tired of companies that sell us bullshit that's not vetted. I'm tired of the equipment that we've had for years that are terrible. I won't name the company, but we all know the bad Halligan bar. I'm not going to name the company, but we all know the one that has the shittiest bail, right? And so, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of this for-profit complex thing that we have. And it's just the hope that we can get more of that 100% GMO organic, information, and
Yeah,
it should be free, man,
yeah.
you know?
It's a poor analogy because nobody. Well, I guess I think about Forrest Gump, and I know that's stupid, but
No,
where
come on.
Forrest Gump does all these things in his life, and he goes, "I cut that grass for free." That's what I think about with when you
Yeah,
get those kinds of instructors that have done all this stuff that's incredible, and
yeah,
and now they get to come back. They're cutting the grass for free. They don't care anymore. That's not what it's
yeah,
about. It's not about making money, and
yeah,
yeah, at the same time. Yeah, some of those guys got to make a little bit for their family, right? I'm not
yeah,
knocking
yeah.
anyone
Well,
for
that's their
that
job.
does that, right?
Yeah,
And that's okay. I think Ike was on the scrap, and he was talking about like as a battalion chief, he's never made over 100 grand.
right, right.
Like, and so yeah, he says real estate was what more made is, but like
Yeah,
it's. But if you look at like his model for county fire tactics and the conferences he does, it's not he makes a little bit of money, but that's just to do the next conference, and maybe he gets a little bit to do his thing, and he lives a
he
good
also
life.
takes care of Pensacola, like,
Yeah,
the community benefits. Like,
yeah.
there are things that, I just don't want to see, um, again, and I just say it like that, don't, I just hope we don't pimp out the job.
We know that they exist. They do. There are definitely
Right,
people that have their programs out there and their websites behind a
right,
paywall. It exists,
right.
but if we choose as an industry, if we choose to not, invest as much into that,
Yeah.
there's great
It,
people that aren't doing that.
I tell this to other training officers, and I even say this on the show or whatever, if there's anybody still listening, anything that I have that I do for Cal City, anything that I do, it's all free. I'll give it all to you because it's all shit that I just resourced or collected, and none of it's really truly mine, except 180, 90, and 360. I didn't make a
Yeah, you
360.
got to trademark that. That is
No, here it's free.
well,
Take it.
yeah, I know,
It's
but
so, but you know what I mean? Just remember to credit me. Um,
yes,
but that's the thing is like, man, that I it should just be that. It should just be, hey man, this is how you use a speed square. Everyone should know how to use it. We can all be good carpenters. I don't want, hey, some dude is like, just collecting money in the bank and they're laughing on their way,
yeah,
get out of here.
yeah. We don't need that anywhere near
Yeah. No
anything that
frauds.
we do.
Fraud free zone
Fraud
for
free zone.
Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Uh, so the current state of the fire service, could you triage it? So green would be it's going strong, yellow it's hurt, red it's dying and crippled, and black it's dead. And then what can we do to maintain or improve wherever you stand within that triage?
I think we have a mass casualty incident in the fire service, and you definitely have some people that are some parts of the fire service that are like the part of us that just sells us out, for hits, social media likes or dough or cash, hoarding information. That part of fire service, it's been dead for a long time, and I think that kind of shit has killed people. And on the other end, there's a shit ton of green that have survived that mass cash incident, man, and they're helping other people out. They're helping do triage. So I wouldn't give it a color because I'd say it's all out there. But right now, I would say there's more green out there helping the yellows and the reds. And if the reds choose to go, I guess we call it purple now, but they choose to die, if they choose to sell out the job, hey man, you had your chance because we're giving you the helping hand, you know?
Yeah,
And so I think that's where I think we're on the right path, stuff like this. Dude, you like, I love this. You got your family, you're doing this because you give a shit. We both freaking took care of our kids tonight, and we're doing enough just to have a conversation. So
yeah.
I love it, man. I think we're going the right way.
The more connections, like you're
Yeah,
saying, the greens helping the yellows, helping the reds. that is what it's about, right?
right?
You're spot on. You're spot on. We can't
The
all
first
be in the green,
rescuers at an
right?
incident,
Yeah,
right? Think about that.
yeah,
If you have a major thing and the first couple people that are there aren't hurt, but they're like, all right, I'm getting you out of here. I'm getting you
yeah,
out of here. I'm getting you out of here. You take a mass casualty incident where you've got a bunch of the best trained guys and they won't engage at a school shooting. That's an it.
yeah,
Those guys are, you know what I mean? Like you want that mom that was willing to go in there and rip her kids out.
yeah,
And we got that. We absolutely do. People are hungry to help.
yeah.
So,
I
you
don't
know,
think I can
isn't
ever ask this question again because I don't think I don't think there'll be another answer, better or any answer that's whatever. Either way, I think so. Last one here.
all right.
What is the best part of the job?
Oh man, it's as much as I'll be like, oh, the guys suck. It's the guys because okay, realistically, I've spent more time sitting after dinner bullshitting than I ever have training. 100%. 100%. And I don't know if it's like that in every job, but I have never laughed harder. I have never had the friendships that I've had. I've never grown. Like I joke with this dude. I've known a guy, we were both on private ambulances together in 2002. And I'm like, dude, we're growing old together. I took a third ambulance call. I had my partner on the truck, and he was like one of my longtime partners, and we're both old and gray. And it's just like seamlessly laughing and shooting the shit. And now the young guys that are coming on, and I'm watching them do the same things, but they're doing it their way and they're having fun and, you know, just enjoying that life. Like, what a cool freaking job. You get to live, and if you can, you get to create a place where uh, there's just a peace, man. Like we're a bunch of idiots. We're gonna fight. We're gonna do whatever. But God dang, man, when you're sitting, you're shooting the shit in front of the station, or you had a good call. Like there's nothing better to me than 3 in the morning after a good call. It doesn't have to be. It can be whatever that was good. Something that everyone's up, and you're just sitting at the table, and nobody else is up in the whole world. As far as you're concerned, and no one's ever gonna remember that conversation. It's the best. It's the guys. It's the job.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. All right. On
Cool.
that, man.
It's a lot. Sorry.
Don't you be sorry.
I start talking.
No, I'm sure we'll have a round two at some point. I mean,
We went long, man.
no, that's. I don't even know if there's such a thing. I did 4 hours on the scrap. I mean, we're not trying to do that. I'm pretty sure we'd fall
No.
asleep. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, we got young kids, dude.
I got to
is-
get up in the morning. Like,
he's putting down pina coladas on the
yeah,
bed,
right.
man.
The doc talks, right?
Right.
Well, Sammy, thank you for coming on. Hang out, and we'll green room it here to end. But I'm gonna end the stream
Cool.
here. Thank you for
Thank
listening,
you,
and then thank you, Sammy.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.